One man is rewriting the rules and taking it to another level.
And the next level, and the next level.
The 7th level.
You just feel how natural it is. You feel how open you become to your prospects, and in response, they usually become more open to you.
Founded by Jeremy Miner, 7th Level is the only friction-free sales system guaranteed to raise revenue.
In my life, it's been revolutionary.
And his followers are feeling the difference.
His training has transformed everything.
It is precise, and it really draws out emotions.
People around the world are starting to catch on.
We're going to tie in the new model of selling to your product or service that you sell.
These tools can work for anyone in any industry at any time.
And it's time to get on board before the ship sets sail. It's 7th Level with Jeremy Miner.
All right, I'm here. All right, so it is Wednesday. If you are in our Facebook group, Sales Revolution, you know that every single Wednesday for the last 3 years, a little bit over 3 years, we have interviewed a client from a different industry like clockwork every single week. So this week, we're going to interview another client, and I'm going to let you ask him any question that you have. This client started in sales not very long ago. We're talking about a year ago, and went from around, and I'll let him tell you his story, I think around $5,000 a month to now over $30,000 a month in commissions. Type in me if you want to ask this client questions to help you get up to that type of level with what you sell. So type in me if you want to acquire the skills, the sales ability necessary to start earning, more money than what you are now, whatever that number that you want to be at. Type in me if that is you. All right. Welcome, Aaron. Welcome, Anthony, Chad. A lot of you are on YouTube there. Welcome. Now, today, we're going to let you guys ask questions. So I'm going to have you ask him questions. You can post them in the chat. Anything that's on your mind. Hey, what was your biggest thing you had to learn to do this? Or how do you do this? Or can you help me with this? And then what we'll do as we go through here, I will pick out the top 5 or 6 different questions, and we'll talk with me and this client will talk to you about them. And he's also agreed to give you some golden nuggets. This client is in one of our advanced programs. It's called Advanced Inner Circle. We actually only let 50 people a month into that program. It is capped at a certain level. Some months there are waiting lists to get into that program. So these are advanced clients that go through this type of training. You have to be certified in our NEPQ 2.0 or NEPQ 3 Pro 3.0 before you can even get into Inner Circle. You can't start right there from the very beginning. All right. Now, if you are brand new, because we're going live on StreamYard here, so we're going live in the Facebook group Sales Revolution. We are also going live on our LinkedIn. Now, Facebook Revolution, that Facebook group, 101,000 of you in there. That thing is growing really quickly. We're also going live here on the YouTube channel, LinkedIn, the Facebook business page, 160 some thousand of you on that Facebook business page. That thing is growing up real quick too. Now, if you're like, who is this guy? What is going on? Jeremy Miner. I am the founder of 7th Level. In case you didn't know, we are a sales training organization that trains people like you, watching me in this shirt. So we train sales executives like you, sales people like you, sales management like you, sales leadership like you, coaches, consultants like you, entrepreneurs, business owners. And what we do, and this client will give you some examples, is we train you how to use certain techniques, certain questions, really the way you use your tone that works with human behavior rather than works against it. What does that even mean, Jeremy? We're going to talk about that today. Okay, that's called NEPQ, stands for Neuro Emotional Persuasion Questions. Now we're going to also, not just the questions, that's just part of the equation, but it's how you're asking them, what type of tone, because your tone is how the prospect interprets the intention behind every single question you ask. That's how they interpret why you're asking the question, what's behind it. All right. Now, if you're on the live right now, what I want you to do is to go down to the bottom of your phone here, and I want you to post hashtag live. So go down to the bottom of your phone here. I see you guys here. Go down to the bottom of your phone, and in the comments, I'm going to have you post hashtag live if you're on the live. And if you're on the replay, go post hashtag replay. So if you're on the live, go post hashtag live. And if you're on the replay, go post hashtag replay. I better see a ton of hashtag lives, and I better see a lot of smashed hearts and a lot of smashed likes. So smash the heart button, smash the like button. Good job, Bill, Bradley, Aaron, GPro149, Jordan there on YouTube, Facebook user, Andy. We've got Bill there, Paul. All right. Hashtag live. If you're on the replay, post hashtag replay. All right. Let's bring the client up here and let you guys ask him questions. And he's going to agree to give you certain things he's learned in some of our advanced inner circle trainings that is going to help you sell more if you take advantage and actually listen. You might want to take notes. All right, Jake, how are you, man?
Doing good. Doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Well, there you go, man. You got it. See, there's a requirement to be interviewed in the Facebook group now. We have clients clamoring to get on there. You got to make at least $30,000 a month in commissions to even be interviewed here. You have done that. So well done, my friend. Now, let's go back. Where are you out of?
So I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Salt Lake City, Utah. Love Utah. I was telling you right before here, that's where I went to school. That's where I started studying behavioral science and social dynamics. That's where I got my first job in door-to-door sales. So I love Utah. It's actually one of my favorite states. Love to ski up there. Just up there a couple weeks ago.
Great, yeah.
Okay. Tell everybody what industry you're in, because you're in a very unique industry, a very unique niche.
Yeah, so I would say that we're in the high ticket coaching space, but essentially we help individuals who are suffering with chronic gut issues. So whether that's bloating, food sensitivities, acid reflux, so on and so forth.
Okay, so so you help people that suffer from irritable bowel syndrome, right? Yeah. Now, a lot of people might not know what that is, but that's like diarrhea. That's like bad stuff.
Yep. Yeah. We get all sorts of different symptoms for sure.
A lot of gut issues, diarrhea. Yeah. Now, what are the consequences of having all that stuff? That doesn't sound very fun.
Yeah. I mean, obviously there's the physical aspect, right? A lot of them are in a lot of pain and discomfort.
Yeah. Can't
eat certain foods, but then, on top of that, it's obviously affecting their confidence in many cases, their ability to travel or even want to leave the house, their ability to go out on date nights with their partner because they can't go to any restaurants without feeling 6 months pregnant after. So
yeah,
it's a lot.
So you solve several problems, but you also solve big time emotional needs.
Right. Yeah.
So you work with a company that sells like a training program that teaches them basically how to get rid of that so it doesn't happen again.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Now, were you in sales before this job that you're in now? What were you doing?
A little bit. I mean, prior to this, I always kind of been in the high ticket coaching space, so that sales comes along with that.
So you're selling like different training programs. That's kind of what the high ticket space is. You're selling like skills, right? Like with these people, you're selling them a program from some type of like wellness center or something that basically teaches them how to overcome that. Okay, now walk me back, because I think you just started in this like a year ago, right?
Yeah, we exactly right around January.
Okay, right around January. And how did you sell before NEPQ? Because I think how long have you been a client here?
I think we're coming on right about 4 months at this point.
Okay, about 4 months.
It started sometime in the summer.
Okay. Okay. Did you get into like 2.0 or 3.0 then Inner Circle?
Well, I actually was fortunate enough to squeak in, and
I don't know how you got an
Inner Circle.
You must have sucked through, because we have a rule: you can't even be an Inner Circle in the program. So we won't penalize you for that. I don't know how you got through. Yeah. Okay, so go back. So how did you sell before NEPQ?
Well, it was pretty humbling when we first started this, new company at the beginning of the year, because I come from a background of doing a lot of organic marketing, right? Selling through content, where the people who are getting on the sales calls, I mean, they're really warmed up. They could have been seeing my content for the past 2 or 3 months. And
Okay.
at that point, I was crushing it, right?
Yeah.
50, 60+% close rate. And what ended up happening is the beginning of the year,
Yeah.
we wanted to scale. So we decided to start, marketing through paid
Okay.
ads.
So
Right.
that company started like putting ads. So now you're getting cold traffic and
Right. Yeah. And then I just
to
got
sell.
smacked in the mouth, man. I mean, I honestly, it was super humbling, because I went from feeling like I'm pretty good at sales, right, to, I mean, geez, like 5% close rate. Like, it was just a completely different beast. And I, had to really humble myself and be like, man, maybe I really don't know what I'm doing here.
So how did you find us 5-6 months ago?
I think I just stumbled upon your social medias or YouTube as I was kind of scavenging the internet for, tips and tools.
You're like, how do I sell? What am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah,
All right.
exactly.
So let's go through, because like I said, you've only been a client 4 or 5 months. Give us kind of the pattern. Now, everybody here that's watching, I want you to post a question for Jake in the comments. And I'm going to pick like the top 5, 6, 7 questions to ask him. Like, hey, how do you do this? Or how do you do that? Or I'm having an issue with this. And me and Jake will actually answer them for you while I'm going through this interview, because Jake's agreed to actually give you some questions he's learned and how to use his tone to like influence his prospects to let their guard down, a whole lot more that we teach in Advanced Inner Circle. So, okay. So you get into NEPQ with you became a client. All right. You're in more of our industry specific type of training with scripting and advanced toning, more of the stuff that I do in Inner Circle and small groups. What started changing for you after 1 month, 2 months, 3 months?
Well, there was a few things. I would say the first one, obviously, was just learning how to deliver the questions and just like go through the whole process, sounding a lot more natural, not sounding scripted. And, as you say, being able to lower the prospect's guard, and by just really doing verbal cues and bridging from question to question.
Okay.
So just the more active listening.
Okay. So instead of sounding scripted like most sales
Right.
people do, what you're saying is you've learned from the Inner Circle advanced training as a client how to bridge from question to question where the prospect feels like they're in a normal conversation, not on a sales call.
Right. Yep.
And how do they react to you now compared to before NEPQ?
They just open up emotionally so much more. And so it's, it was the difference between these kind of surface level conversations and, getting them to actually, I mean, geez, obviously it's a pretty emotional sale, what we do, but a lot of people end up crying on the call. Like it's, it's just way different, right? They seem more trusting.
Okay. So they're opening up emotionally, right? Very emotional. Yeah. If you understand, look, I hate to have to tell everybody this. Every industry on here is actually very emotional. The question you might want to ask me is, I haven't learned yet, Jeremy, how to get my prospects to let their guard down and go below the surface where they actually trust me enough to open up emotionally. That should be the question you probably want to ask me. Okay. I even get people like, oh, I sell to Fortune 500 CEOs. There's no emotion there. Guess what? I did too. You just haven't learned how to open them up emotionally because they have problems too. They're human beings, just like Jake sells too. You just haven't learned yet how to get them to want to open up, because it's not just the questions. Like you can ask questions all day long, right, Jake? But it doesn't mean the prospect's just going to open up. It's
right.
How you ask the question at the right time, meaning your tone. Let's talk about this. I think we got a few good questions here from Devin on YouTube. Do you change your tone when talking to men versus women? Good question, Jake.
Well, I will tell you that we market primarily to women, maybe to an extent, but in most cases, I would say that it's pretty much the same for both genders, I would say.
And it depends on the context there. I think it's a good question, because there are certain times where with a woman, and it depends on what industry you're in, I might show even more empathy. Okay. So it doesn't mean all the time. There's no straitjacket interpretation there, Devin, but it depends on the context and what you're actually selling. But I might lean in a little bit more like, oh, what happened? Oh, see, more concern tone there. And it depends on what you're doing, especially with your industry, Jake, very emotional. Okay, now I know this is very personal, but first situation question they ask, right?
Right.
I know this is personal, but and then lean in. Okay. Kim, how does Jake overcome the need to talk to my spouse objection?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, because that was another one of the biggest issues I had before we started, was going through the whole process and getting money objections, think about it objections, partner objections. And I think learning how to kind of strategically identify those earlier in the call and actually address a lot of those was really helpful. So, I mean, the first thing is, making it known, hey, do you have how does your husband or partner feel about, all this pain that you've been dealing with?
Yeah.
And then from there, being able to.
Why would we want to do that up front? So when you're asking, I think you're asking that what, situation or problem awareness questions?
Yeah.
Okay. So they're talking
about problem awareness. Yeah.
Yeah. They're talking about the pain, all that stuff. And you're like, how does your spouse feel about all this going on? And why would you ask that there? Why?
Well, one, it helps you to identify how it's affecting not just them, but their family and their spouse, because once again, a lot of times they don't feel comfortable, they don't feel sexy, right? They don't, whatever. They don't want to be intimate with their partner, but
mainly sell to women. So let's say, they're married to Dan, for example. You're talking to Cindy, they're married to Dan. Okay. Oh, how does Dan feel about all this that's going on? Okay. So when he travels, are you able to go with him? No, you're not. So I'm not. Does he want you to get rid of this, the diarrhea, so you're able to travel with him, or what does he want you to do? Why would I ask those type of questions? How does that help me prevent I need to talk to my spouse objection?
Well, you realize that it's also negatively affecting, their partner as well. It's a problem for them too.
Yeah. Because the partner objection most of the time can be prevented from even happening in their mind, but it's because you're not finding out how the partner or the husband or wife feel about the problem and the pain and what it's preventing them from being able to do, especially in this context, right? Now, if you go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, if you still get that objection at the end, how do you help them overcome it?
Well, I was real quick. I was going to say, it allows you to easily see, if their partner either is supportive of them going more of a natural route, because you'll find if are they on board with them going that direction, or so that's something you got to figure out. Or if it is possibly a money thing, maybe they have looked at other things with their partner and. The money was the issue, which, that's the thing that you really got to address. So,
and if they're like, oh, my husband didn't want me to do it last. Oh, I mean, does your husband want you to keep having all the diarrhea where you can't even go out on trips with him? Well, no, he doesn't. So how does he feel like you're going to get rid of the diarrhea and all that pain if you keep taking the medication that hasn't worked? See, it's helping her or him overcome that, where they're like, why would I even need to talk with them about overcoming the pain that I'm suffering? Because who would need to talk with their spouse about overcoming diarrhea and pain where it's affecting their job and their whole life? Do they need to get permission to overcome pain? Do I need to get permission to go to the doctor because my migraine's about to explode in my head? More than likely, probably not, right? So it's helping them overcome that way of thinking even before you get the objection. All right. Andy says, is this system only good for the USA? Yes, Andy. It only works for humans in America. We purposely made it where it would not work for humans in South America, Asia, Africa, Europe. I'm joking. Of course, we have clients in pretty much every country. So we talk about using techniques that work with human behavior. So if you talk to humans and they have problems and or emotional needs, and your solution solves those, that would mean what? It probably works for every human on the planet. There you go. Giving you some hell, Andy. All right. So Jake, let's give him a little bit of meat here. So give us an example of like a really good, because I think you get inbound leads that book on your calendar, right?
Yeah.
Can you maybe give us an example of like a connection question that we train you how to use? You know, because there's about 4 or 5 you'll ask for your industry, but just give us an example of one and how your prospects react to that.
Well, usually we have a setter who will book them on the calendar. So usually I'll say something like, yeah, so I have some notes here from when you had spoken with so-and-so the other day, but I was curious, I guess, from, you know, what you two went over, what was it that caused you to, you know, maybe want to look into this further?
Now, why did I train you how to be more neutral in the beginning there? What caused you to kind of, you know, want to look into this further? Why would we want to do that there and not be so assumptive at the beginning of the conversation?
Yeah, you haven't built any trust or rapport, so coming off too assumptive, it's going to immediately, you know, lower their
You'll trigger 2 things. If they're an A-type personality, if they're an A-type, they'll be like, well, I'm just looking. I'm not saying I'm ready to buy anything. That's what reaction you'll get from an A-type if you're too assumptive before you've built any trust or credibility, build a gap. Or if they're more of a passive personality, they'll just kind of go with it. But when you ask questions, as everybody knows, you get vague, generalized, surface level answers. If you're getting that, that means your prospects have emotionally shut down because you're triggering it by the way you're coming across with your tonality. Hopefully that makes sense to some of you. Okay, Jake, what about a situation question? Situation questions help you and the prospect understand their real situation. What's a good situation question that we've taught you for your industry? There's several we use for your industry, but what's a good one you use, and how did the prospects respond to that?
Well, generally I say, yeah, and like I'd mentioned, Chad had written down a list of things that you were experiencing, but I never want to assume anything from that short 15-minute conversation. So, you know, as far as the symptoms that, you know, you are dealing with, like what specifically is going on?
I know this is a personal issue, but what kind of symptoms are you having? What's really going on? Why would I want to use more of a concern tone there in that context for your industry specifically?
Because it gets them to start getting more emotional. I mean, if you're kind of flat or monotone, they're not going to perceive the question in the same way. They'll probably give you a flat response, a surface level
answer. Yeah. How do your prospects respond to even that opening situation question? What do they do?
They usually just dump for the most part. They'll usually start going off about all the different pains and whatnot they're dealing with.
Yeah. Now this leads us to this question, because I think this is a really good question. Looks like somebody from maybe the Facebook group is asking this question. Let me see here. Let's see if I can see the person on here. Oh, Alberto, how do you go about asking people problem awareness questions when they're telling you all their problems up front? It's a good question.
Well, that was one thing I had to learn, is how to politely interject and not let them take control of the conversation.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times they will just start to word vomit right out the gate. And so I think the biggest, and that's where the verbal cues come in, because it allows you to, like, when you catch something that you want them to go deeper on, you can politely interject and say, well, hold on, what do you mean exactly when you say XYZ?
Yeah.
And it allows you to kind of regain control of the conversation.
Now,
there's
a difference. I want to make sure everybody understands. There's a difference between interrupting and interjecting. Interrupting, oh, you have that problem? Let me tell you about what we do. And you cut them off. Interjecting is they start talking. And I definitely want to go through that. But walk me back. A second ago, you mentioned this. How did you mean by that? And I go and interject, ask for clarification. No one will ever stop with that. They'll be like, oh, well, what I meant by that is, and they'll go right into it because you're focused on them to get further understanding. If you let people vomit on you with all of their problems, you are killing yourself, because they're going to have massive unorganization in their brain, and they're going to spill everything over, and you're going to have no idea where to go. They are going to have, in turn, uncertainty because they spilled everything out. You let them sit there and waffle for 3, 5, 7 minutes, and then you don't even know where to go. And now they're uncertain. And now they're going to start peppering you. Well, how much does it cost? Can you tell me about what you do? And you're going to trigger that. So you want to get them back on that yellow brick road, okay, where they have certainty. Okay, I understand that. I want to go through that for sure, but go back a little bit. You're losing me here. You're on page like 15. I'm still on page 3. Tell me about the symptom you mentioned there originally. I didn't understand what you meant. And I've taken them back on that yellow brick road. Hopefully that answers your question, Alberto. Okay, let's go to a problem awareness question. Problem awareness questions allow the prospect to understand that maybe they have a lot of other problems they didn't realize they have. I mean, when your prospects get on there, Jake, they kind of understand that they have a problem, right? Mm-hmm. But they don't necessarily know how bad that really is, or maybe the depth of it, or especially the consequences of what happens if they don't do anything about solving it, right? Remember, we talked about on that inner circle session you're just on before this, that a lot of times in your industry, they just get comfortable with being uncomfortable. They just get used to dealing with the pain, and they don't understand that they don't really have to live their life like that. They just haven't found something that will actually solve their issue, right? So what's a good problem awareness question that we've taught you? Because there's several in your industry that you have to ask. Yeah. What's a good one? Maybe one of the first ones you ask that really gets them to open up emotionally.
Yeah, so I'd say, it's with this constant bloating going on. I mean, what's the hardest part of all this you've been having to deal with?
And why would we ask that question for what you sell?
Gets them to start talking about how it's affecting, the other aspects of their life in many cases.
Yeah. So with the constant bloating, what's the hardest part you're having to deal with? And I'm going to use a lot more of a concerned tone with a lot of the questions you're asking. Why?
Because they start taking it more seriously. They interpret it differently. They go deeper when you show that you're concerned about them.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to make sure everybody write this down. Your tone is how your prospect interprets the intention behind your questions. Okay. So have you mastered a curious tone? Have you mastered a confused tone? I'm not understanding. What did you mean? Confused tone. Have you mastered a challenging tone? What happens if you don't do anything about this? And have you mastered a concerned tone, a tone that shows more empathy? Have you mastered a playful tone? Okay. If you don't know what I mean by that, quite literally, you are losing tons of deals that our clients who are in your same industry watching me and Jake are making every day. Okay. How did you start to learn tone? How has your tonality started to change when you started learning that?
A lot. I mean, it's practice. Like, you just have to practice it over and over and over again. But listen to other examples of people who have great tonality, like your recordings and whatnot, is great.
Now, are we as human beings, are we born with advanced tonality skills? No. Anybody? Raise your hand on here. Type in me if you were born with advanced tonality skills. Somebody type in me if you were born with advanced tonality skills. Type in me if you were born with advanced questioning skills. If you're born out of your mother's womb with advanced questioning skills, type in me. And type in me if you were born with advanced objection handling and objection prevention skills. Type in me. So it's a myth when people say you're a born salesperson. Nobody is born with those skills. Those are acquired skills. Nobody's born with advanced tonality, advanced questioning skills, and advanced objection handling. These are something we learn. Besides Keen Clarity on YouTube is the only person on the face of the earth, and Bob, that were born with those skills. Well, we need to learn from those guys. What are we doing on here? All right, let's keep going here. Let's see. I'm in solar sales. I was wondering because I feel like when it comes to the guys, I have to take a stronger tone. Devin, I don't know what you mean by a stronger tone. You mean like I'm assertive? Assertiveness doesn't mean, I don't know what he means by that. What does a stronger tone mean? Like you're more assertive? Yeah, you still want to be assertive. I can still be assertive and have a concerned tone for certain questions because it's how I'm coming across. Am I coming across as like I'm an expert? I know what I'm doing? It's how you come across, all right? All right, let's talk about solution awareness questions, because after you've helped them find all these problems and you built a gap from where they are to where they want to be, we then want to help them see and feel what the future will look like once the newfound problems are solved, right? And there's several solution awareness questions you have to ask for your industry or any, but maybe give us just one example of a solution awareness question that allows them to see what their future looks like once the problems are gone, solved.
Yeah, so I would say, so let's just say that we're able to come in and, completely eliminate the bloating that you've been dealing with. Let's just say in the next 5 months, right, to where it doesn't come back, because bloating is one of the main things that people come to us for. But I mean, you being able to wake up feeling like yourself again and feeling good compared to, I mean, how you described, where it's like you don't even want to leave the house because you're so uncomfortable. I mean, you getting to that point, how would your life be maybe different than it is now?
Perfect. That's good. Now, what did he do there? That was a really long question. So when we're asking really long questions, what do we have to do, Jake?
Verbal pace it out.
Why do we have to verbal pace out the question? What does that do?
It allows them to stay engaged with what you're saying. If you just kind of go across at the same pace, they kind of zone out, and then it's not going to land.
If you ask the question, a long question, and you just have one monotone voice while you're asking the question, and it's really long with no verbal pauses in it and all that kind of stuff, and you keep doing that over and over and over, your prospect's mind starts to go in other areas, talking about like, oh, when should I pick up the laundry tonight? And I'm not sure that I can afford this. And then they start thinking about different things, and they never internalize what you're just asking them. But when you slow down your pace and you have what are called verbal pauses in that question, like Jake just showed you, it causes their brain to engage, to pay attention, to hang on to every word. That makes sense to everybody? That's an example of what we call verbal pausing and pacing out the question. If you don't know how to do that, you're losing tons of deals that you could be making. Right, Jake? Maybe a little bit?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Sure.
All right, let's give a couple other questions here that I like here. How do you guys go about asking Okay, this is a good question. I am also in high ticket coaching. So my question is how training has helped him with getting better closing ratios from Uzma. How has the training helped you get a higher closing ratio? Because I think you were at 5% before Inner Circle.
Yeah.
What are you at now?
It's like 35 to 40% now. So
Okay, 5% to 35 to 40% is much better. But like I told you today, when you graduate Inner Circle, your closing percentage, you keep learning. I know you start at 5%, you went to 35 or 40. That's really good. But quite literally, you should be able to get to 70 to 75% with every.
That's a goal.
Okay, good. Now, how has the training helped you get up to that, even from 5% to 40%? What's the two biggest things you've learned that have really elevated you up to that so far?
I would say objection prevention. So learning how to kind of discover what possible objections could come up. We do that in solution awareness. Mm-hmm. So if it's procrastination or money or partner, like actually pre-handling that. And then, like I mentioned at the beginning, anything that lowers sales resistance. So the verbal, the tonality, the verbal cues, those types of things have definitely made the biggest difference.
Most of you have never even learned something as basic as verbal pacing. Have you? Jake, did you ever heard of verbal pacing before you got into NPQ?
Nope.
You ever verbal pausing or verbal cues?
Nope.
You ever heard of preventing objections before they happen in the prospect's brain?
But I didn't know how to do it.
Yeah, exactly. You've heard, oh, I need to learn how to have tonality and body language, but nobody's ever really trained me how to really do that, like advanced level. Okay. All right. Let's go to a couple other questions. How did you afford advanced inner circle with only $5,000 a month of income? From Joe. I don't know. How did you do that?
You make it happen. You put it on. I put it on a credit card.
So going from $5,000 a month to now making over $30,000 a month.
Yeah.
Was it worth getting the funding together?
Yeah, it's an investment. It's an investment. I knew that I was gonna get an ROI on it, so I was, you do whatever you gotta do.
We only have almost 19,000 testimonials in the first 3 years. Going out on a limb there might possibly work. I'm just guessing there, but good job making $5,000 to $30,000. Has that changed your lifestyle at all?
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, it's cool, but it feels like it's just the start. So I'm excited to keep implementing.
I told you with what you're selling, you'll be well over 60 to 70.
Yeah, I feel like I can get so much better than I am now.
You've only been here 3 or 4 months. So,
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep going here. Which industry does he work in, out of curiosity, from Dave? Go ahead. I think he must have came on here late.
Yeah, high ticket coaching in the gut health space specifically. So gut health coaching.
Yeah, so he helps women like that have irritable bowel syndrome get rid of that, all the diarrhea, all that pain associated, going to the bathroom, can't travel, lack of confidence, all that kind of stuff. Let's see. Okay, Matt, when do you present your actual solution? Do you present the solution and then use committing questions? That's what Matt is asking you.
Yeah, exactly. Like right after we do consequence question, we'll go through the presentation, drop price, and then we'll do the commitment questions afterwards.
Perfect. Let's see. Is it possible, Benjamin on YouTube, is it possible for someone outside USA to be an appointment setter for someone in the US?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Why would you not? Yeah, I mean, we have appointment setters all over the world for our account managers, Philippines to, one of our top appointment setters, Laura Metzger, she makes a ton of money. She works in the Philippines. So you can be anywhere, appointment setter, for pretty much any industry. Let's see. How do you secure, Asama, how do you secure remote closing jobs?
I think a good place would be to maybe post in some of the Facebook groups. Yeah, just getting connected with other. I mean, I would say it's probably big in the coaching industry, the high ticket coaching industry. So just
go into Facebook groups.
Working in Facebook groups.
Go into Facebook groups. Start posting about you're looking for some type of career in that type of space, and learn how to sell. So a lot of salespeople make this huge, like, life-killing mistake, and somehow they think in their mind that they can get a sales job and then somehow in the sales job then learn how to sell. I mean, you can take that gamble for sure, but if you don't start selling from day number 1, how long are you going to last before you get fired? Because if your company is paying for leads and you don't know how to sell yet, you're just winging it, hoping and praying you're going to learn it on the job, who's going to be the first one that gets cut?
Right.
Person that doesn't know how to sell. That would be like a doctor, like, oh, I'm just going to learn how to do surgery just on the job. I don't need to go to medical school. Oh, I'm an attorney. I'll just learn in the courtroom. I'll figure it out. No, that's why you can't do that. You have to learn the skills and then you get the job. What is the biggest reason why sales is one of the biggest careers that has the highest attrition rate? Meaning, person gets a job, most people end up getting fired or quit. What is the reason for that? Because salespeople go into the job thinking they're going to learn on the job. That's why you get canned. Smart people learn how to sell before they get the job. So when they start day number 1, they actually know what the hell they're doing. And so they don't get cut. They control their own destiny. Whereas salespeople that are not successful because they think they can learn on the job, they are the first ones to go every single time.
Yeah, and it would be 100 times easier for somebody to pick you up if you posted in a Facebook group, if you said, "Hey, I've invested X amount of money in advanced sales training." I mean, especially if you've never sold anything in your life, like most people aren't looking for a newbie to learn at their expense, right? And so at least if you can come in and say, "Hey, I've invested my own money and time in these programs to learn these skills," like it's going to
It
stand out way
shows
more.
your employer that you're serious about your career. So who are they going to hire? The new person who's invested thousands of dollars into their career development to be a really good salesperson, or the newbie who's bought 3 books for $20? Which is going to give them more confidence that you're going to sell for them? I think we all know the answer to that. Okay, good question. Hey guys, Brandon. Hey guys, for outbound leads, how do you handle people who say they don't remember filling out a request? Brandon, what do you sell? Depends on what you sell. Depends on the outbound lead. Did they respond that day? Did they respond? Are they aged leads? Are you calling like insurance leads where they're 8 months old? Give us some more details. We can probably give you a better answer on that. Let's see. A couple other questions here. That tone builds trust immediately, 100%. Okay. Let's see. Could you interject with asking, would they want to do something about it? From Raj. Could you interject with asking, would you want to do something about it? Jay, I guess it depends on the context and where you're at in the conversation, right?
Yeah. I mean, you could definitely say, so time to make a change possibly.
That would be more like, we're talking
It wouldn't
like
be an interjection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be more in
Yeah.
the consequence stage where we get to that level for sure. All right. Let's see. Do you believe being a sales agent is really sales? From Eric. I don't know what you mean by that, Eric. Sometimes pain becomes one's identity. So yeah, I can see how people get caught up in their misery. Yes. And that's not enough to make the sale.
Yeah.
Misery and crying does not necessarily make the sale. They just cry in their misery, right? Getting them to see what the future looks like and feels like once the problem is solved completes that deal. What are your thoughts on that?
I had to learn that. I felt like I was building these huge gaps because it's super easy for people to get on and talk about all the pain that they're in, but the thing is, for a lot of them, especially if they've been dealing with it for 10 plus years, like they've become so accustomed to being in that pain that's like, yes, it sucks, but it's familiar and I'm used to it. And a lot of times, like they've been dealing with it for so long, they can't even imagine what life would be like on the other side. And so unless you can kind of paint that picture of where that end destination is for them, it's just,
It's just
they're not
trying to
take it.
Yeah, because you got to get them to see what the future looks like when the problems are. Now, you can't tell them because that just goes in one ear out the other. Your questions allow them to tell themselves what it's going to be like. Did you see at the very end, Jake said, so you being able to, let's say we're able to come in, we're able to do X, we're able to do Y, and you're finally able to, get rid of the pain where you feel confident enough to go out and go on dates and be in front of people again. How do you see your life being, I don't know, like how do you see your life being, maybe, different than it is now? Now, what is the prospect doing when I say, how do you see your life maybe being, different than it is now? Where do they visually go?
They're imagining all the ways it would be better and different if they were on the other side.
They start to visualize not having the pain and being able to do all those things that this problem that they have, these problems are preventing them from being able to do. Now they start to see what the future looks like. Now, what's a good consequence question we try to ask that rips that future away from them and gets them to defend themselves on why they feel like they need to change and change now?
I would say, so what happens if you don't do anything about this? You have to keep dealing with this bloating and you're never able to get to that point where you feel, confident to leave the house. Like what would happen at that point?
So we start with the challenging tone and end with the concern tone. Why?
Because it's basically it gets them to really consider the possibilities or the ramifications if they don't do anything. But you also want to show that like you care. You're not like attacking them,
You're
right?
concerned that if they don't
you're
change this, the consequences are going to be bad. You're concerned for them. That
Yeah.
builds massive trust. All right. I've been selling B2C for 30 years from Bob. Just took a B2B gig. What do you recommend for transition? I can answer that if you want me to, Jake, because I know you're in.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I was sold in 4 industries during my 17-year career before I started 7-Level, 2 B2C, 2 B2B. What you're going to have to learn in B2B is you're going to also have to learn how to sell to more than one person. So if you sell virtually and you're getting other decision makers and influencers involved, you're going to have to learn how to sell to them as a whole and still cause them to emotionally open up, even in front of other people, but in a group setting. You're also going to learn how you're going to have to learn how to weave yourself through or an organization, depending on if you sell enterprise or even SMB, still going to have more than one decision maker. Unless you're selling to mom and pop, a hardware store that one guy and one gal owns or whatever, you're going to have to learn how to navigate through that organization and help find out who the other decision makers are. And Forbes magazine read an article a couple years ago, the average company, now I'm not even talking about enterprise level, average size company has 6.7 decision makers and or influencers who will influence the decision makers. So if you're just talking to like one of those decision makers, like a C-level executive, you're dead. You will lose 99% of the time, because even if you're talking to all the decision makers, but you don't understand the influencers. Let's say if I'm selling, some type of SaaS program, and I didn't get, let's say, the person that's over, that right now. Let's say if I, the CTO, Chief Technology Officer, I didn't get them up. They can't make the decision. It's the CEO, let's pretend, or somebody else. But can they influence the CEO's decision? Yeah, because maybe they built whatever they have now that's not getting the job done. And now they're going to feel like you're a threat. You're an outside vendor. You're going to make them look bad towards their boss. Maybe they get fired. So now they're going to try to influence the decision makers not to go with you. So you got to learn how to get them involved where it's a benefit for them as well. There's a whole lot of other things you got to learn, Bob. Message me directly if you want to learn those skills. We train tons of salespeople in B2B sales, tons of companies in B2B sales. We can teach you all that if you want to. That's all in our virtual training portals for our clients. Okay, real estate agent here. Now, what is the mindset, thought process for a salesperson to close their prospects? How do I go about rejection? That's like 2 questions. Jake, what's your mindset to close prospects?
To me, it's one, detaching myself from the outcome and focusing specifically on genuinely seeking to understand the situation of the person and being able to help them. I mean, that's, I think the biggest thing is if you're so fixated on the transaction and making money, then people can feel that and they can sense it. So I really try to, take a moment before calls to envision myself on the other side with somebody and actually, empathize with them. And obviously real estate's a little bit different than kind of what I do, but I think that applies with anything that you're selling.
Look, for you asking the question, you want to learn how to overcome a rejection? Learn a far more advanced sales ability than you have, so you hardly get rejected. I hate to tell all of you guys this. You guys have all been like pounded in the face that somehow you got to have tough skin, thick skin, take rejection day in and day out. And as you know, eventually that does what to you? Wears you out. It's a myth. Anytime you hear sales trainers say that, all they're telling you is what I'm training you doesn't really work that well. So you're just going to have to take a lot of rejection. You're just going to get mainly no's, and you're just going to have to work harder and call more leads. How the hell does that give you a competitive advantage? Do you want to do all that? I wouldn't want to do all that in sales. I'm not the one that has the problems, right? The prospects have the problems. Who has the solution to solve those? You do. The better question would be is, Jeremy, how do I learn how to get my prospects to let their guard down and emotionally open up and actually open up and tell me what their real problems are so I can help them solve that? It's probably a better question you want to ask. All right. Channing, hey, one of our first clients. Good job, Channing. You're crushing out there. What are you selling now? All right. Any last words of advice, Jake, that you'd like to give? Maybe even a new salesperson looking to get into sales, or maybe a vet that's like, hey, I'm already doing well. I'm making six figures. And somebody says, any good books for remote closing? Any good books for remote closing, Jake?
Not that I know of.
No, there's nothing out there. So,
Book of questions.
Yeah, right. The books are books. You're not going to triple your sales by a book, because how are you going to learn advanced tonality from a book? How are you going to learn what questions to ask for your industry from a book? It's going to be hard to do that. You probably want to get into training programs that train you all that. A book is $20. What are you going to learn from a book? Book is an overview. Your brain retains less than 3% of that within 30 days, just so you know. Okay. Any last words of advice you give to anybody?
Yeah, so I mean, the biggest things I think are sometimes the boring, monotonous stuff, right? Listening to call reviews, doing role plays and whatnot. It's not always easy, but when you get into a program with Inner Circle, it's fun because you're in this energy of everybody wanting to improve and make money. I mean, there's a lot of guys in the group who are wanting to get together even outside of the calls and role play and do all that stuff. And so it's it's just like the whole, you become, who you surround yourself with. And that's one of the things I think has been cool about Inner Circle is like, you're around all these people who are constantly trying to get better. And obviously having advanced coaching, like you don't want to be doing these repetitions with, when your skills aren't there, right? It's not practice.
Well, I think Michael Jordan said it best. Exactly. Yeah. Michael Jordan said it best. You can shoot 1,000 jump shots a day, but if your technique is off,
right?
You were taught the wrong technique, you're still going to suck at basketball. I hate to tell you that, right? But you have to learn the right technique. Same is true in sales. You can practice all day long if you want, but if your techniques trigger sales resistance, you're still not going to be that good.
You're just building bad habits.
You're just building bad habits. You want to build good habits. Jake said it best, 100%. Last question, David, what skill that you learned in EBQ do you feel like got you the biggest impact on your results? It's a good question. David Despin.
I would just echo what I said earlier. The objection prevention and learning how to identify possible objections before you even get to the end of the call and how to kind of address those. And then the tonality piece, the lowering sales resistance. I mean, that's huge, because if right off the bat you're triggering sales resistance, the sale is shot before you even get into it. Like it's
guard up, it's over. Yeah. We call that disarming. So in our virtual training, portals and group training with our sales trainers and myself, for our clients, one of the biggest things you're going to learn is how to get your prospects to let their guard down, even from the very first words out of your mouth, using your tone and certain things you say and ask, and really how to eliminate some of the things you've been taught that are triggering sales resistance with what you sell, how to eliminate that and make them more neutral, and also how to get them to keep their guard down the entire sales process. Because if you can get them to let their guard down the entire way, they open up to you. But if you trigger sales resistance, that's why when you ask questions right now, they give you vague, generalized, surface level answers because they're guarded. That is a triggered reaction based on what you're saying to them initially and what you're not asking and how you're using your tone that triggers them to stay guarded. It's not like they were just woke up one day like, I'm going to be guarded 37 seconds in on that sales call when that prospect is a little bit too enthusiastic with their pitch and their tone, and I'm just going to be guarded. They didn't plan that out. It's a reaction based on what you're doing, what you're saying, and how you're using your tone that's triggering their brain to protect themselves. It's just, it's the instinctual part of your brain, your survival part of your brain. It's a defensive mechanisms. So we teach you how to eliminate that where that never happens. And it makes selling a little bit easier, would you say, Jake?
It does. It's nice.
Yeah, pretty nice to make 4 times, 5 times what you are now. It's not bad in every industry. Shannon said, this stuff works. I'm more than tripled my income. Good job, Shannon. I know you've been here several years, Shannon. You're one of our first 500 clients, actually. I remember you. Well done. What are your thoughts on hard closing as compared to your techniques? From Mr. Wicker Weaver.
I mean, it's not ideal, not preferred. I mean,
yes.
I just feel like when you can get somebody, you can build a gap emotionally from where they are and where they want to be. Like, you don't have to pressure them to do it. Like, they want to do it, and it's their decision internally, not because you've convinced them, but just because you've asked them the right questions to where they're telling themselves why they want to do it.
Yeah.
And so it makes it a lot easier than you just having to have the gift of gab and, you know, be such a smooth talker. Like, if you learn how to do these things, then they want to do it. They come to you, and it's way better in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, hardcore closing is just going to get you the level you're at right now with your income, nothing more, because you're triggering sales resistance the whole time. Do you like being hardcore close? Do you like feeling the pressure from your prospects? No, we teach you, instead of giving external pressure, how to trigger internal tension in the prospect, where they feel so much internal tension that they want to move away from that pain. That pain is the problems that you've allowed them to see and feel they had that maybe they didn't understand they had. And they want to move away from that internal tension. That's completely different than external sales pressure, where you're trying to push. We train you how to get them to pull you in. Which way do you feel like is going to make you more money? I can tell you what our clients say who are in your industry. Okay. All right, Jake, congratulations. Now, type in the chat if you want to acquire even 20% of the skill level that Jake and our clients who are in your space are acquiring on a daily basis. Type in me if you want to acquire that type of sales ability that took Jake from $5,000 a month to now over 30,000 each month in commissions. Type in me if you want to acquire that same skill, because you don't have to. You can stay at the same income you're at now, or you can acquire a higher level sales ability and earn far more and actually probably work less hours. So type in me if you want that. Now, if you do want that, you typed in me, message me directly right now. So if you're on YouTube, you'll have to join the Facebook group, salesrevolution.pro, to message me. If you're in LinkedIn or the Facebook group or the Facebook business page or my Facebook, message me directly right now. You know, there's 130 some of you on here. We'll probably have half of you message me. When you message me, myself or someone else on our team will message you back. We'll ask you a few questions about what you sell, kind of what you feel you're asking or maybe not saying, or your tone that you feel is causing you to lose sales you could be making. And once we understand what income you're at now compared to where you want to be, if you're an individual salesperson or if you're a business owner, where your company's at compared to where you want it, we'll let you book even with one of our account managers, and they go through different training options we have. We have like 34 or 35 different sales training programs built for different industries, different people. And once we understand where your skill level is at, our account managers will then suggest which training program to start in. You have to get certified there before you can move up into more of the advanced training programs. Depends on your income too. Okay. If you're only making $3,000, we're not going to put you in our advanced inner circle starting out. Probably a little bit too advanced for you. Okay. Start you more in 2.0, different versions of that. All right. We will be back live here on Tuesday with another subject matter training. Message me directly and we will message you back. Jake, thanks so much. Congratulations on your success. I'm looking forward to see. I'm even looking forward to see where you're going to be at 3 or 4 months from now, because you should be almost double where you're at right now.
That's the goal. Yeah. We'll keep you posted.
Well done. See you on the next training call. All right, everybody. We'll see you soon. See you on Monday. We'll message you back once you message us here in the group. Thanks, everybody.